Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of The Brief. Not just any edition of The Brief, our 100th episode. How? I don't even know how that math works out, Carrie. Carrie Alaville is my co-host. I'm Marcos Molitzis. This is our weekly show about politics. And I still don't understand how we have done 199 of these, and then we're about to do 100. Seems surreal,
There's
doesn't
still
it, Carrie?
there's still people who listen to us. Can you believe it? We get out here every week, and we're like, okay, 5 minutes before the show, we're like, what are we going to talk about? I mean, sometimes we have guests that are a little bit more planned, but there's a lot of shoot from the hip, and people still listen to us. I mean, whatever.
Hey. Not only is it our 100th episode, but the topic could not be more appropriate and more fun to talk about. Donald Trump was indicted. And we had said that the first episode of every month was going to focus on Ukraine. I think you'll forgive us this month if we sort of push that off to one of the next couple of weeks or maybe even next month, depending on how the Donald Trump stuff shakes out, because this is big news. It has massive ramifications towards the Republican nomination contest and next year's election. So obviously we're going to be pretty focused on this for the time being, if you all don't mind, and I don't think you do. And so, yes, Carrie, you heard, right?
Wait. No. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Trump was indicted? Okay, let me just say, in all seriousness, Marcos, what a good get it was to get Trump indicted for the 100th anniversary.
I didn't think it could happen. We didn't think so, but it came through right at the last moment. So what can we say?
Okay, so I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. What were you getting at?
I mean, because remember, the jury had supposedly they had adjourned for the whole month, and they weren't going to meet again till where are we now? We're in April, not till May, and so we thought, oh, there's no indictment, and it had sort of shades of the Mueller investigation, right? We all expected it, or no, it was Fitzmas, right? Remember with Fitzpatrick, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, Fitzpatrick. But you know who else was kind of thinking, oh, the indictment might not be coming like at all? You know who else was thinking that?
Tell me.
Donald Trump. Donald Trump and his lawyers. They apparently, I mean, reportedly, like this is in the Washington Post, that they were starting to like get used to this idea that it was being pushed back and maybe the indictment wasn't coming at all. And apparently they were caught off guard by it, which is just kind of delicious, isn't it?
They are, oh my God, it's so good. And even Donald Trump on his Truth Social posted about his newfound respect for the grand jury, because clearly they were not being a rubber stamp for Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan DA. And so, well, they weren't a rubber stamp. They considered the information. And I think it's very important to note that as we record this, we don't know what the charges are. Probably by the time you hear this, Trump is going to be turning himself in at some point on Tuesday, I believe. And at that point, they will unseal the charges. But as we talk about this, we don't know the charges. So when we talk about what we're going to talk about now, Republican
we're pre-recording we're pre-recording on Monday, which is like, because this was such an emergency, we had to get it out. So anyway, we're recording a little bit earlier than usual.
And so as we write this, just keep in mind that the whole Republican establishment, with very few exceptions, has rallied around Trump, not even knowing what the charges are. It's mind-blowing. There's no sense of let's wait and see what it's all about.
Yeah, and supposedly we don't know yet for sure, but there is some reporting that suggests that it's north of 30 counts. So, that would right. That would suggest we don't even know what, but that would suggest something more than just the Stormy Daniels payment, right? That would suggest that maybe there's something involving Karen McDougal, who was the other person that they paid off to keep quiet.
Playboy Bunny, I believe.
Yeah, Playboy Bunny. I don't know. She was another person who was paid off to keep quiet, and implicated in this catch and kill scheme that he had with David Pecker or whatever, the guy who is the publisher of
Journal,
National Enquirer.
So
I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know exactly what it is. I probably shouldn't be like, guessing. I'm not really guessing. What I'm saying is it is likely broader than just the Stormy Daniels payment. If there's going to be 30 plus indictments on, or 30, on this
Counts.
30 plus
Yeah.
counts. So
Yeah,
anyway,
and that's ostensibly what we think this is about. There are 5 investigations, major investigations right now of Donald Trump. This one is about the payments to Stormy Daniels to keep her quiet. There's the, like you said, catch and kill, which means that the National Enquirer bought the story from McDougal, and then they didn't run the story, but they had rights
right.
to it, so nobody else could run the story. And then there's also investigations on Trump stealing secret documents, and there's he implicated that himself over that hilariously. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. And even on Trump's lawyer, I'm sure you saw this last weekend, went on one of the Sunday morning talk shows and was saying that it wasn't Trump company money that he used to pay off Stormy Daniels. It was his own money. And I think it was Chuck Todd who was like, "Well, no, it was Trump company money." And he said, "Oh, it's the same thing. It's Trump money." That is hilarious because that's called piercing the corporate veil. Like you can actually, the corporation, the legal construct of a corporation shields the individuals behind it. So, say you could sue a company, you can't go after the CEO of the company or the founder of the company. You have to go after the corporation itself. By saying there's no difference between Trump money and Trump co money, he just essentially pierced that veil. So, if there is a financial payoff or it, it's all pierced now. And not just in this case, in every single case, including some civil cases that are pending against Trump. So
Good
again,
news.
he doesn't hire the best and the brightest because none of them will work for somebody who doesn't pay and doesn't listen to them, and goes on Sean Hannity and implicates himself, as we'll hear in a few minutes.
Yeah.
And
Hey, listen, don't go anywhere because we got a great clip for you coming up down the road. So just stick with us.
so what's amazing though is that Republican Party, of course, has rallied around their favorite criminal enterprise. They
Yeah.
can't quit
I
him.
mean, it's amazing, but still not shocking because this is today's Republican Party. I mean, I interviewed Sarah Longwell, who we've had on here, who's, an anti-Trumper, publisher of the Bulwark and hosts the podcast, the Focus Group, right? And she told me when I interviewed her a couple weeks ago, she was like, listen, they're all going to rally around Trump. Whereas in a normal party, right, any one of Trump's rivals would say, oh, great, my rival's been indicted. I'm going to go out and say, clearly he's unfit for office. He shouldn't be running, blah, blah, blah. They're not going to do that. And of course, they're going to rally around him because the base will demand it. I mean, I'm kind of paraphrasing what she said. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, you saw Ron DeSantis dip his little toe in the water of saying, well, I don't know what's involved with, hush money payments to a porn star. I mean, which he repeated a couple times. He got completely blasted for that, by people like Steve Bannon and, my pillow guy, Mike Lindell, and, and then, Trump base voters, as well as, people like I think Candace Owens, and like that they were like,
The
well,
deplorable, the basket of deplorables.
right. We always knew that DeSantis is a good guy, but we always knew that he wasn't the real deal, that type of thing. And then you see the indictment actually comes down, and DeSantis is all, this is un-American, and this is a Soros backed prosecutor, which is something he had said before, but total anti-Semitic dog whistle, right? And then but everybody else did that too. I mean, Nikki Haley, who at this point, in terms of the people who have announced, Nikki Haley is kind of like the sort of establishment pro-Trumpy candidate, right? I don't dislike Trump. He's been great for our party, but I'm going to say that we should back Ukraine against Russia. Like that's the type of candidacy she's running,
Yeah.
right? And even she came out and said, hey, this is this is a political prosecution, quote unquote. That was like an actual thing she said, and she was all this is Manhattan, DA, a lefty. It's a political prosecution, and Mike. That's essentially what Mike Pence was saying. So basically, the whole field up until Sunday, the whole field was saying that, and then Asa Hutchinson, former governor of Arkansas, who now has the pleasure of having Sarah Huckabee Sanders as their governor. She's young, right? And she wants the young to work, which is why she just took a hatchet to the child labor laws there. Anyway, so I digress. Asa Hutchinson is the former Republican governor of Arkansas, just left recently, and he came out and announced that he didn't, it wasn't like his formal announcement, but he basically went on ABC's This Week and said, I'm going to run. And he had last week actually said, and he's a former U.S. attorney, so he knows something about these things, actually said, listen, obviously there was a fact pattern here that a grand jury in New York found convincing to indict Donald Trump. And we should wait until we see what the actual charges are.
Crazy.
To judge them. The crazy talk. And so when he announced, he also said, I think Trump should drop out because, the American people don't need this type of distraction in the race for president. And so he's the lone, I've been waiting for who's going to be this person, right? Was Mike Pence, who was sort of supposedly kind of feeling his oats a little bit on separation from Trump, going to do it? Was Nikki Haley going to have the guts to do it? I didn't really think so. But would someone like Larry Hogan enter and do it? Would, Maryland governor? Would someone like Chris Sununu from New Hampshire do it? Governor there? No one had sort of demonstrated this. Larry Hogan said, I'm not even getting in the race. Chris Sununu's obviously flirting with it, seems to be like he might do it, but hasn't taken a strong stands against Trump and is actually, sort of backpedaled on that. So Asa Hutchinson is this lone character, this lone Republican candidate for president who's doing this. And I'll just say, he probably doesn't have a chance in hell of winning, right? He's not going to find enough votes without some of the MAGA base, but he is going to sort of completely render ridiculous people like Nikki Haley, who's trying to ostensibly say, I'm not crazy, but I'm still pro-Trump. Okay, those two things are not compatible. And that is what someone like Asa Hutchinson, having at least a foot in reality and being willing to say it out loud, is going to reveal. He's going to make it very difficult. He's going to blow that path that Nikki's trying to walk to smithereens.
So, Carrie, how do you run in a Republican primary as a pro-Trump Republican against Donald Trump? How does that even make sense?
Well, you can run against, that's essentially what DeSantis is doing, except DeSantis is Trump mini-me, right? And what we are finding is there's no Trump light that's Trumpy enough, right? Because we are seeing just support deflate.
You have the real deal. Why would you go with anybody else? If you're pro-Trump, you're going to support Trump.
Right.
They haven't given anybody a reason, and there could have been a reason, right? The reason could have been Trump has lost those 3 elections. We love what Trump stands for, but he might not be the best messenger. But the things he believes in, I will carry that forth. Now, of course, Trump doesn't believe in anything, so there's really no ideology to cling to and wear that as a mantle. Trump is Trump. He's the person. And we're even seeing this with the anti-DeSantis stuff that Trump has been running, that has been hitting DeSantis on Social Security.
Right. They actually there was a really good ad recently. I can't remember who sponsored.
A Democrat could have ran that ad.
Yeah, Democrat could have ran that ad. Who ran it? Do you know? Was it a Trump super PAC?
No, it was Trump super PAC. Yeah.
It was Trump's super PAC, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, all it did was talk about DeSantis's vote when he was a congressman, to raise the age for Social Security, to basically to slash Social Security, to like
Which
totally ruin
every
the benefits
single
for people.
Republican voted for that. Every
Right.
single Republican.
But now he's been trying, DeSantis has backtracked on that since he wanted to run for president. And Trump has had signaled that he was going to hit him on it. So DeSantis has been sort of, has said, oh no, we don't want to cut Social Security. So Trump's just calling BS on that. And it is I mean,
right. So
if this ad,
there is no Trump ideology. It's whatever he thinks is convenient in the morning, in the moment, to get him votes or to have him score political points. And that's what's kind of fascinating to me is you're running as a pro-Trump Republican, but Trump's in a race. You cannot do that. And you can't adopt his policies because there's no such thing as Trump policies. He didn't accomplish anything as president. Mitch McConnell got his tax cuts through, but that was the only legislation of any note that passed during the Trump years. And so you had the situation where there's a poll, I think it was Quinnipiac, Carrie, correct me if I'm wrong, that found that only 30% of Republicans said they were MAGA. But over 60% of Republicans, it might have been in the 70s, thought that Trump had been good for the Republican Party.
Right.
Objectively,
I actually don't know which pollster did that, but I did see it. Yeah.
Objectively, that is false. There's no way you can look at the Republican Party today. They lost in 2018. They lost in 2020. They lost in 2022, which we've spent the last year talking about how if the Democrats were to avoid a wave loss, it would be because of abortion. It would be because of Donald Trump. And that's what happened. Democrats avoided a wave. They actually won the election. The only reason that Republicans took the House was because of gerrymandering, redistricting. So objectively, nobody can look at Donald Trump and say, yeah, he's been a positive for the Republican Party. I think it was over 70% of Republicans, and only 30% say they're MAGA. So even the non-MAGA Republicans are like, yeah, Trump's been good for the party. So he's running in the primary. There's just no avenue. So the only avenue I see, Carrie, is what Asa Hutchinson is doing, is to stake out a Trump isn't good for the Republican Party, and I'm going to tell you why. And yeah, odds are you're going to lose. But if Trump goes down, then you can pick up those pieces. Then you can be like, okay, I told you all.
I'm noodling on this. Can I give it a shot?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so Ron DeSantis was never going to be able to out-Trump Trump with a background of having voted as a congressman on federal issues, right? The problem is that he's tried to fit himself into Trump's mold, but he has this background that isn't Trumpian at all because it was traditionally Paul Ryan conservative, right? Mm-hmm. So he right from so it's really easy for, just like we were talking about with that Social Security and Medicare ad, it's really easy for Trump and his super PAC to be like, yeah, this guy's totally, he's bogus. He's not the real deal. And mm-hmm. and that's exactly what happened. I think there is a path for someone who plays it right. As long as they don't have, it's partly circumstantial and it's partly actually just being a good politician. You cannot have the baggage of having taken federal votes, national votes, okay, as a congressperson. So someone like Nikki Haley, has her conservative, record in South Carolina, right? Mm-hmm. In what she's done. She didn't have to take any of those votes. I think it's possible if you hold your fire. What I would have done, instead of coming out and saying, I would have done something that was somewhere in between where Haley was. And, screw it. I'm going to announce my run for president of the United States right here.
On the Republican Party. All right. Now this platform I want to hear.
I used to think Trump was an idiot, but now I think he's a genius. Back when I was a liberal, I thought he was an idiot. No, okay. So here's what I'm saying. I think that if you did something, if you split the baby between what Asa Hutchinson said and what Nikki Haley could have come out, just for example, and said something like, I really regret that the country is at where we're at with this indictment. I really regret. This is a terrible time in our history for this, right? And that's a statement that like everyone can agree with. The Republican base can agree with that. Democrats can agree with it. We didn't want to be here. And then you say something like, I think like you have to throw some discredit Alvin Bragg somewhat and say, I'm really suspicious of, something coming out of New York, of a Manhattan DA. But I do think I would be really curious to see what that indictment's going to bring. So like you kind of like, and here's what you're waiting for. You're kind of waiting for Trump to end up getting 4 indictments, 5 indictments. Not just, I'm saying about different cases, not just the Stormy Daniels case, but the interfering in Georgia case, maybe the documents case down in Florida that's federal, or the January 6th case that's federal, right? You wait for him to stack up several of these and just say, I really think it's a shame, right? Donald Trump was a good man. He's done good things for our country. But I hate to get to this place. I just think we need someone to represent his ideas with less baggage, right? Or something like that. But you wait until there's several. And then I think, maybe there's an avenue there. But Nikki Haley came right out and said, well, this is political, prosecution. So she's like already unloaded.
And nobody asked her. It's like there's not a single person out there that cares what Nikki Haley has to say. Like she's fighting for attention because she's a non-factor right now. So yeah, no, there's no harm in sitting and waiting. There's more, shoes are about to drop. It. I mean, I don't know. Might this be a good place to talk about, Donald Trump going on Sean Hannity and literally admitting to a crime?
Wait 1 second. Can we hit how this indictment has consolidated more than just the presidential field behind him? I just want to make note, right? For instance, the Yahoo and YouGov did a poll over the weekend, a post-indictment poll, and found that Trump had improved his standing in a head-to-head with DeSantis, which we know isn't exactly like a perfect indication because there's going to be several people in this field, but they take more away from DeSantis than they do from Trump typically. So in a head-to-head, Trump had improved post-indictment by 10 points. And he was originally, let's see, do I have this written down here? He was originally 47%. Let's see, he leads him now. He leads DeSantis 57% to 31%. And that's up last month from 47% for Trump, a 10-point improvement for him, and 39% for DeSantis. So DeSantis has shed 8 points or something like that. So, I think this is probably, a little reactionary, but still poll indicates.
Yeah, DeSantis was already plummeting even before this came. So, So for all we know, it's a mixture of both people looking at DeSantis. And we've talked about how DeSantis was not going to stand up to the scrutiny of a national campaign. I thought he'd last a little longer than May or April of the the year before the election. But he's been wilting for sure. But yeah, I definitely see a rally around the flag effect.
Right. And right. And let me just say one other thing, because that's the that's the data, right? But then we also have this qualitative evidence from several different focus groups that have come out post indictment. And Sarah Longwell, who we've had on here, anti-Trumper, host of the Focus Group podcast, she did a post indictment focus group, and she said it was the first time she's done 7 focus groups this year with 2-time Trump voters, right? So 2016 and 2020. And up until the post-indictment focus group, all of the 2-time Trump voters, there had been, sort of this yearning for, we have to have an electable candidate. Most of the people saying that, leaning towards Ron DeSantis. And she had noted like a few focus groups ago that DeSantis was starting to lose some of his appeal as Trump was really attacking him. And then in this post-indictment uh, focus group, she said it was the very first group where everybody said they wanted to vote for Trump. They were, ready to donate to him. They wanted to buy the T-shirts with his mugshot on it. They were mad and animated. And she said, I hadn't seen a group in which everybody wanted to vote for Donald Trump in 2024 until this group. And so you have, with the polling and with the focus group, she's not the only person who conducted a focus group like this. Both the qualitative and the quantitative evidence that the base and the voters, along with all of Trump's 2024 rivals, save Asa Hutchinson, rallying around Trump. Okay, now.
Yeah, no, and I do want. By the way, I just want to. I was right. It was a Quinnipiac University poll earlier, and it's 72% of Republicans think that Trump has had a positive impact on their party. 21% think he has had a negative impact, which is just absolutely blows my mind. I wonder this rally around the flag effect. I wonder how much of that is going to stick around from me. I mean, they may be angry that he's being indicted, but are they really going to be like, yeah, he should not be indicted for paying off a porn star that he had sex with while Melania was home with a brand new baby? Like, do they really want to sit there and defend that, or do they do the Republican conservative thing where they just kind of create their own alternative reality?
Right. This is exactly so. This is why I think forget about this indictment. There's more people much smarter than me, on the legal, like in terms of legal issues and all of these investigations. They fully anticipate more indictments coming down. And this is why, as one of Trump's rivals, I think you keep your powder dry a little bit on this and try to walk a line and wait until there's several indictments and then just say, God, it's one thing to say Alvin Bragg is a terrible Manhattan liberal lefty prosecutor, but there's this, federal indictment and there's this Georgia indictment. And it doesn't matter how many times we say it's the woke mob or whatever. This is a real drag on a candidate. And, Sarah Longwell, I saw a couple clips of her. And since she was talking about this focus group. And one thing she said was, there's a real question about, there's this short-term rally around the flag thing, rally around Trump thing, but is it what's the long-term effect? And that's why I think you just try to hang in there as a, Trump rival and let everybody have their moment where they're like, no, they're not going to do this to us. Trump is our guy. And they hug him and all that stuff. And then you wait for it to dawn on people that there is no freaking way that, anyone who isn't just a MAGA diehard, just, pro-Trump, whatever, is gonna, any of these swing voters, any of these ticket splitters are gonna vote for Trump when he has 5 different indictments against him from 4 different cases or whatever. He's gonna have, a lot of counts.
And what's amazing about these indictments is that you don't even have to make the case. Donald Trump will admit to the crime, even on friendly media, and we're pulling in Sean Hannity right now, right? So,
yeah.
Put it very clearly. Listen up. This is Trump talking to Sean Hannity about the secret classified documents that he stole and he hid from his attorneys, even at Mar-a-Lago and potentially elsewhere as well. And so he goes on Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity throws him the softest of softballs. Donald Trump says, no, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to implicate myself. And then Sean Hannity says, no, you really wouldn't implicate yourself like this, would you? And Trump's like, yes, I will. And Hannity says, no, okay, let's move on. And Trump says, no, I'm going to continue implicating myself. So that is literally the outline of this clip. And I think it's so enjoyable.
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Okay, should we roll tape?
Yeah, let's do it, please.
I can't imagine you ever saying, bring me some of the boxes that we brought back from the White House. I'd like to look at them. Did you ever do that?
I would have the right to do that. There's nothing wrong with it.
But I know you. I don't think you would do it.
Well, I don't have a lot of time, but I would have the right to do that. Right. I would do that. There'd be nothing
wrong. Let me move on.
Remember this. Yeah. This is the Presidential Records Act. I have the right to take stuff. Do you know that they ended up paying Richard Nixon, I think, $18 million for what he had? They did the Presidential Records Act. I have the right to take stuff. I have the right to look at stuff.
I would do
Was-
that.
was I-
I would do
was I-
that. I would do
was I
that.
kidding?
Let's move on. No, I would do that.
Was I kidding? Was my outline not spot on?
No, I mean, literally like Sean Hannity is like holding his hand, easing into that question. He's like, I know you. I don't think you would do that. You know what I mean? Like trying to walk him down the path. And like Trump just can't do it. I mean,
All right, let's move on. Let's move on.
this is, I mean, I just want to, I want to say all these people right now who are like, they're not going to do this to our guy and whatever, it's going to dawn on them in a few months, maybe some of them. I mean, I'm not saying like the whole, I'm always talking about a sliver, right? I'm never talking about like the whole MAGA base, right? But there's some of them who were DeSantis curious and wanted to kind of move on because they wanted someone who was electable, not because they didn't like Trump, are going to start looking at clips like this over and over and over again and go, holy shit, we're going to be saddled with this again.
Yeah, no, he wants. So to be clear, and this is probably not clear to a lot of people, the Richard Nixon thing is correct. The Presidential Record Act that he references multiple times was passed to prevent that situation from ever happening again. He thinks it gave Nixon the right to profit. The $18 million, that gives it away. That's what Donald Trump wanted to do. He wanted to sell this stuff. He wanted to make money from this stuff.
And he might have sold stuff.
Yeah,
we don't know what we didn't get back. I mean, God only knows.
Yep. So that act was to prevent a situation like that. I don't know where he got the idea that he gives them that right to those documents. And so it's and he just literally admitted that he did it for profit because he wanted to do exactly what Nixon did. And
yeah.
Sorry, there's noise with the I got kids.
No, that's
break.
okay.
But he cannot shut up. And he has a long track record of implicating himself because in his mind, he is correct. And he doesn't care about the law. He doesn't care about what's happening. He doesn't care who it implicates. And so he's going to keep blabbing. His lawyer is a dumbass who keeps going on the talk shows. And he keeps saying things that they shouldn't be saying. So, yeah, not only are these cases working their way, and they're strong cases because Trump is Trump, and he did try to steal, the election in Georgia. He did steal documents against the law. He absolutely tried to pay off Stormy Daniels. Like all these things are real cases, and they're working there. And the January 6th, the insurrection. These are all real cases, but it's not. It's almost like you don't have to depend on the prosecutors to make the case. Because just by bringing forward the charges, he's going to start blabbing about it to defend himself, giving away the game. And he does this time and time again. And so, yeah, Carrie, I think you're right. It's going to get exhausting after months and months of the circus, because it's going to be a circus. On Monday, when he was flying from Mar-a-Lago to New York, they were tracking the plane.
The
it was
tracker.
taking off. It was landing. You were tracking it on flight tracker sites. CNN had a speedboat apparently with a camera chasing the plane as it was approaching, I don't know, LaGuardia, wherever it landed. And so it's also ridiculous. It's going to be a circus. I know that the media organizations, they're all hurting for ratings. Everybody's suffering layoffs because media viewership is down. And This is like a return to the glory days of 2016. So It's going to be a circus, and it's going to be repeated time and time again with each of these charges, and it's going to suck all the oxygen out of any real primary, at least for the next half a year probably, because you're not going to be able to talk about Republican priorities in a Republican primary. It's all going to be about Trump is being under assault from the woke DAs and all that nonsense. And I don't know if the MAGA base will ever realize it, but yeah, I think you're totally right. The more malleable Republicans, certainly college-educated suburban white voters, women have already voted with the Democrats 3 cycles in a row. This might this might be the final nail on the coffin.
Let's
Those
do it.
men,
Let's have it. Let's have
those
it. Let's get
suburban
it.
college educated white men who I've seen hints that they're starting to waver. This, again, like this does not play in suburbia. They don't need this nonsense, right? They'd probably be happy with DeSantis. Give us DeSantis. All I care
Right.
is about
Oh, yeah.
tax cuts.
Oh, yeah.
And
Hey, listen, I looked at a poll and I can't remember which one it was last week, but where they in the crosstabs between Trump and DeSantis, the college educated Republicans were favoring DeSantis by double digits. Whereas if you went to the non-college whites, they were favoring Trump by like 17, 20 points or something. So there's definitely an educated crowd within the Republican voters that is very into, DeSantis, and they favor him by quite a bit. But Trump is favored more by the non-college crowd.
yeah, so what happens when, Trump runs away with it, or not even runs away with it, but it gets all the attention in the next few months? Do those DeSantis voters, do they tune out?
They look for an alternative. They really do. I mean, who is going to occupy that space? Is everyone by then going to be like, DeSantis has already blown it. He's already a has-been. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, they still don't want to vote for Trump. They don't like him. They think he's insulting. Maybe they
he's not electable. They could probably do the math.
That's the main thing. He's not electable. And they don't want to vote for him. So they're going to look for someone else who they reasonably think can get through. And the question is, who's going to step in? I mean, there is, Chris Christie is up there in New Hampshire that last week making a case for himself that it's going to take a bully to beat a bully. Right? You're going to need someone.
Not a bad. He's an asshole.
Right.
But he's owning it.
Right. Exactly. I mean, he didn't say that. I'm saying that, but that's the case he was making. He was like, someone's got to kneecap this guy, and no one in the current field has the guts to do it. Right.
Yeah.
And so, there's a question as to whether, based on his performance in 2016, he's the guy, because he had to drop out after New Hampshire. So second state. But if he's going to, like he said, I made a strategic mistake. I went after Marco Rubio. And, my guess is that his strategic mistake was he should have just gone straight after Trump. And that's what he would do this time. Yeah. Well, if you get someone like it, I always think I could see a scenario where everybody rallies behind Trump and he just is going to be the nominee. There's also a scenario where, someone like Christie gets in and starts hitting the shit out of him, and maybe lands some blows. And then like he's got a bunch of indictments stacked up against him. And Asa Hutchinson is like appealing to the better angels wherever they are of the Republican Party. You know what I mean? Then maybe there's room for someone to step in. Maybe there's room for a later entrant in maybe the fall or something like that, who's been doing the prep work but just hasn't announced. I mean, it's just like I can see it either way. Here's another thing I just want to add to this conversation before we get out of it, which is there is another entity that's really enjoying this as much as we are. It's the White House. Okay. The Biden White House is like,
I bet they enjoy it even more.
Okay. Let's have Joe Biden go to, Minnesota and talk about jobs and which is what he's doing. And you're going to have this, they totally are planning this split screen of, Trump doing like the perp walk or whatever, and Biden being, all these front page stories about Biden being in Minnesota, talking about his, the jobs that he's brought and, his infrastructure and CHIPS, legislation and all that stuff. And so it's so easy against the backdrop of Trump for Biden to look just truly presidential, just like, hey, if I'm just out here doing my jobs, creating jobs, so that's another thing that's, Trump could suck all of the air out of the entire room nationally when he was president. he is going to suck all of the air out of the Republican primary.
Mhm.
But he's going to have, but Joe Biden still has the bully pulpit of a national presence in the White House. And there's a lot you can do with that. So he may not necessarily, like, the news he's making may not necessarily trump the headline, Trump's headlines nationally, but it's still going to get coverage. And a lot of it's still going to get front page coverage. And wherever he goes locally, that's going to lead, right? That's going to be a lead story wherever he goes locally. So they send him to all the battleground states with all the good news he's bringing. I mean, hopefully. And he's just looking, or even not good news, him like being presidential. And then, you've got the Trump show on the other side of the screen. And that's good for Joe Biden, no matter what. It's just good.
It's not even it's a circus at this point. It's not even a fun show. It's just a cluster F. So I have one more, we're almost out of time. I have one more sort of idea to sort of kick to, just like, bounce off you and see what you think. I'm
tired of talking about this. I'm tired.
There is
bring it.
There is a belief amongst right-wing circles that this means that Trump is going to win the White House because he's revved up the conservative base. He's gotten it. They're so angry that they're going to walk across broken glass and, with flaming oil to vote for Trump. I think it totally underestimates just how excited we are on our side about this. This is like a hallelujah moment. This is the heavens have parted. Angels are coming down, trumpets blaring. I don't see a single liberal, progressive, Democrat kind of going like, all right, Alvin Bragg did his job. I'm good. I'm not going to, I see people revved up. And so far this year, Democrats have been outperforming in special elections, have been outperforming Joe Biden's 2020 numbers by about 9 points. This is kind of like what happened last year. People are not, slacking off. We're going to know more when we don't know now. When you listen to this podcast, you'll likely know if Democrats won the Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. That's going to be a big bellwether to see how engaged Democratic voters are it's an important race, but it's an odd time. It's designed to lower voter participation. That's why it's in, at the beginning of April, as opposed to like when regular elections are in November. So, but we'll know more there. My theory is that, this is going to rev up conservatives, and we're seeing them rallying around Trump. I think they're already revved up. I think conservatives already vote at almost maximum levels. And our challenge has always been to make sure Democrats turn out and vote. We won last year because Democrats turned out, not because Republicans slacked off, but because we did not slack off. And so to me, this news is energizing. It's exciting. It's good news. We're happy about this. I think this is going to improve Democratic performance. Curious what you think.
Right. Well, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Listen, there's no one who has sort of animated or energized the Democratic base the way Donald Trump has. He is the threat that he poses. His style of crazy is exactly what started to this migration of suburban voters from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party. And, he has upended the political landscape in so many ways. But that, and Trump has also pulled, unfortunately for Democrats, a bunch of working class, pretty dependable Democratic voters over to the Republican side. But there's, once you pair, number one, college educated voters are extremely high propensity voters, very high propensity, especially in a midterm. But also, there's a bump, of course, in a presidential cycle. But what Trump has done is, and he's very importantly for Democrats, help move suburban sort of conservative leaning Republicans or conservative leading voters in the suburbs away from Republicans and to Democrats. And at the same time, and I think people kind of forget about this, but this is going to be huge. It's already been huge. All the young people who have voted either once or twice now for Democrats because the Republican Party is such a, batshit crazy. I've done a lot of swearing. I'm sorry. It's the Trump indictment syndrome. Batshit
I'll
crazy,
allow it.
like the Republican Party is, right? They have voted, and they know, like they have voted, if not once, twice already for these under 30 voters for Democrats in large numbers. Like I can't, somewhere in the 60 percentile or something, or even 2/3. So it's a huge generation of kids, the Gen Z generation, and they want nothing to do, for the most part, with the Republican Party. And especially after the abortion ruling and the Republican Party, just dismantling abortion and reproductive freedom, reproductive rights in this country, they are just completely alienating. And Trump's the one who picked the judges. He put, he and McConnell, as much as they despise each other, teamed up to pack the court full of these conservative judges who couldn't give a damn about legal precedent, and took, I think, much to the surprise of McConnell and many people, within the first chance they had, they just struck down, Roe v. Wade. So this is, I think, if, there was a coalition that has come out 3 times to vote against Donald Trump specifically, and his type of politics. And guess what? Donald Trump running again and actually being on the ballot, if he ends up being the GOP nominee, is just going to reignite that entire coalition. And, Donald Trump, I will admittedly, he scares me more than anyone because of what he will do if he gets in office, right? He doesn't have, again, swearing, but he has no fucks to give anymore about what you're supposed to do as a president and precedent and all that stuff. He probably spends every night thinking, when I was in the White House, I can't believe I wasted even a minute listening to John Kelly or any other chief of staff or any other person who doubted what he wanted to do. If he gets in again, he will immediately fire everyone who he doesn't like. He's not going to have a chief of staff trying to rein him in or anything like that. He's going to have total Trump apologists surrounding him, and they are going to absolutely destroy the federal government and dismantle our elections as we currently know them.
He won't be running for re-election either. So it'll be mass. Yeah, exactly. He'll be destroying everything brick by brick. He'll burn the place down.
Yeah.
Woo. All right. Well, that's a down note, but I was a lot more excited when we started talking about the indictment. I don't know what happened.
No, well, the good news is that the indictments, I think, overall make it a lot less likely that he gets there, whether it's because the Republican Party stops him or because the anti-Trump coalition stops him, one way or the other. Knock on wood.
That is our show for today. We may be back to Ukraine coverage next week. We'll see. Or we may be talking more about indictments, because who knows? There's a bunch of indictments teed up and stuff will be coming out. So we'll be on top of that. But we also recognize how popular our Ukraine coverage is. So we don't want to lose that. So we'll get back to that as soon as the sort of this crazy news cycle lets us get back to that. So thank you so much. Thanks, Carrie, for being my co-host. Thanks to Walter for being our producer. Thanks to Paul, helping behind the scenes. And thanks you, the viewer, the listener, the reader, for doing everything you do for our democracy. This is a time to celebrate. Let's enjoy it, because Trump is not happy, and we can take joy in his pain and confusion and fury at anybody daring to hold him accountable. So it's going to be a fun time, at least for the next few months. So thank you so much for joining us. Let's celebrate now and get ready for the big fight down the road. So again, love you all. Appreciate you all. Catch you all next week.